Freedom Radio Hour. Live on Capital Radio 91.6 FM.
All right, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Freedom Radio Hour. I'm your host, DJ Adam Cruz, and I'm sitting here next to my fantastic co-host,
Eddie Nicholas. What up, beautiful people? I'm dressed in blue jeans today because it is a blue, beautiful day. Welcome to 91.6 FM, the Heartbeat of Sudan. Mixtape sessions, music, the Freedom Radio Hour, y'all. You know all that spiel. What's up, Adam? What is going on today? You know, give the ballyhoo of what we usually do.
Well, first of all, I'm so happy to see you.
Yes,
Thanks
likewise.
for taking the time.
Always.
Let's take a moment to let our viewers and our listeners know that the Freedom Radio Hour is here, not only giving you fantastic music, but we're here to be your number one source for music, business, news, and trends from around the globe. As we mentioned, we're live on Capital Radio 91.6 FM and on the web at freedomradiohour.com. Thank you in advance for liking, sharing, commenting on everything we're posting. You know, we have a YouTube channel, an app, great new music, a book, all that good stuff. So search us out. All right, let's jump right into it. Do you remember the Music Modernization Act?
Yes.
Okay, so remember that was an attempt finally from Congress to look at all that old language in the copyright law and update it, because now we have things like streaming, downloads, and all this stuff to consider. All right, so part of what the Music Modernization Act is doing is it mandates the creation of a collective. What the collective is going to do is take all that download and streaming money that the services like Spotify and Apple can't match to the right artist or creator. So let's say in this case, you and I do a song together. What's happening right now is without a collective, there's no way for the matching to occur. So there's a black box or suspended income of money that's in the billions of dollars now because they don't know where to send it.
They're sitting someplace in a cyberspace.
Yeah,
bank.
so who are they? These are digital services like Spotify and Apple that are admitting we owe money to such and such, but we don't know
who to send it to.
We don't know the fields when they entered the information before they aggregated that work was blank, wasn't completely filled out, or was incorrect, or the person that they associated the track to was incorrect. A lot of issues occurred, and all of that spells a waste of money and resources. Also, you were having a problem where you would see duplicate registrations between Harry Fox Agency and Music Report. So basically, all these different services that track your earnings if you're a person putting out music, they were being convoluted and confused without an intermediary to clear the air of things.
To say this is who gets what, this goes here.
Or at the very least, we're going to be charged, if we're a collective, we're going to be charged with figuring out who gets what and what the system is for matching the right things, the rights holder with the work, right? So why are we saying all this? Because if you are putting music out, this definitely affects you right now. They're planning to launch this MLC, the Mechanical Licensing Collective, in early 2010. But there are issues around money.
2010, 2020.
Sorry. Let me say that again.
It's taking us back
I know,
in
right?
time.
I sure was. I don't know why I said that. They are planning to launch in early 2021.
2021, so that's 2 years from now.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
Yes, they were planning to launch in early 2021. But the issues around money and how things get paid, etc., will remain foggy until July 2020. So not until the summer of next year will you see some clarity around the following problems. First of all, that Music Modernization Act not only mandates the creation of this collective, but it mandates that the digital services that are Spotify, Apple, Sound Exchange, Harry Fox, all these people share in the cost of making sure that it keeps itself going, right? So the first thing is they said, okay, we have to come up with an annual budget. The annual budget was set at $29 million. Nobody freaked out because Congress had already projected that it would probably be around the 30 million figure in order to have it run annually. Okay, so they said, okay, that's not too bad. But there's a startup cost. You see, once it's going is one annual cost, but the original setup cost is what's in question right now.
And then the question is, who's going to pay?
Right. So the question is, all right, so if it's going to be Spotify, Sound Exchange, Apple, all these agents, all these services, are they going to share in the cost? They have a formula they have to figure out to divvy that up. Now, that's all in question because, of course, if you represent Spotify and I represent, say, Sound Exchange, we're going to lobby so that the formula is in our favor, meaning that we pay out less than we need to. Because we don't want to pay out more than we have to.
And you best believe if they do pay out and if they have to pay out more, it's going to trickle down to the subscriber.
Yeah, to the end person. You are sure right about that. So right now, that's the big thing. How the formula for figuring out how much each of these services have to pay. Also, they have to figure out the minimum payment. You know, the music.
And afterward, they have like a monthly fee that they have to pay, or something
also,
like that,
don't
or
forget,
a yearly fee.
There's an initial sort of cost that have to be put up. You got to pony up a certain amount of dollars initially. So this minimum payment, how much does everybody have at the minimum they have to fork over? Right, because usually the rest is muddled up in percentages and back deals, etc. But there's an initial capital that's needed.
In other words, if they're sitting down at the table and they have all these entities, well, each entity has to come up with $2 million.
Right. So what's that minimum payment? Right. So they haven't figured that out. And the last thing they haven't figured out is how to maintain transparency. You see, they're trying to remedy an issue that requires transparency in order to resolve it. Why? Because part of the issue with not knowing who's what's which is that there's not a way to see it all happening. It's all undercover because these companies aren't all online. They're all, like I said, are maintaining their private interest as this goes along. So they're trying to figure out, they meaning the Mechanical Licensing Collective, is trying to figure out how to maintain transparency throughout the process. So you guys that are balking at our startup costs of $37 million can figure out why it costs that much. And nothing is murky or mysterious.
Well, you know, that's a lot to digest in this early portion, but we're going to be back. 91.6 FM, the Heartbeat of Sudan, mixtape session music, the Freedom Hour, y'all. Back in a second.
Come back with us, y'all.
From author and music industry leader Adam Cruz, check out the new book, Free the Music Business, Tips and Tales from an Indie Music Nerd. Available now on paperback, Kindle, audiobook, and soundtrack, courtesy of Mixtape Sessions.
Freedom Radio Hour. Live on Capital Radio 91.6 FM.
What up, beautiful people? I'm Eddie Nicholas, and welcome back to 91.6 FM, the Heartbeat of Sudan, and the Freedom Radio Hour, y'all, Mixtape Sessions. I'm sitting here with my fantastic, knowledgeable host, the one and only Mr.
Adam Cruz. You're locked in right now on the Freedom Radio Hour, your number one source for music, business news, and trends from around the globe. Last we were talking about issues around the mechanical license. Yes, it's hard to say. These acronyms always get me. The Mechanical Licensing Collective, they're trying to launch in early 2021, but they need to get certain things in order, including approval of their annual budget, approval of their startup costs, and the approval
in other words, the finances.
Yeah, all of the digital services involved, getting their buy-in and establishing their shares, etc. But this really lends into our next things because this all is happening because streaming has become such a juggernaut in terms of what we consume musically. You know, we talked in prior episodes how we're seeing a level of permanence where two modes of the way we consume music is becoming prominent, and it looks like for now it'll be here to stay. Those two things are vinyl and streaming. Streaming here in the US already is accounting for 80% of all music consumed. So it's a lot. So if you can imagine globally, when you think of global music consumption, you think of services like YouTube. I know that when I think about YouTube, I think that it's this free service that at the quick search, I can search and enjoy music or video.
Find what you want to find.
And find what I want to find without paying a subscription, meaning a per month price, right? Now, YouTube has that offer, but most of us just go to youtube.com, search what we want, and that's it. Oftentimes, we'll have to sit through an ad, but we don't care. It's only a few moments. We'll skip or wait, whatever. I'm bringing all this up. Why? Because when we think about what's happening with the Mechanical Licensing Collective, we can't ignore how we value streaming.
And again, as you said, with YouTube being so huge, one of their mainstays is their streaming capabilities.
Yeah.
And that's what we go through for. And in some instances, people are getting compensated for their stuff being streamed, especially if they have millions of viewers.
Exactly.
Following them. I don't know how that works. That's something we need to find out.
Well, we'll be bringing all that down, I think, in future episodes. But at least for now, what's important to know is that YouTube is having some interesting analysis and assessment around it. Some analysts say that if you break YouTube away from its parent company, because remember, YouTube is owned by Google, who is owned by a company called Alphabet. Okay?
Wait a minute. So I always thought YouTube was an entity unto itself.
Well,
so
that's
you mean
brand.
To tell me,
that's brand at work. So that gives you the impression that YouTube is its own island, right? That it's just its own entity. No, it's owned by Google, who is owned by
somebody else.
Alphabet. So not even Google is its own entity, if you want to think about it in those terms, right? So analysts are saying, if you took YouTube away out of Google, the Alphabet equation, and it was spun out into its own company, it would be worth upwards of $300 billion. And why is that important to bring up? Because now we are in the midst of the next cycle for venture capitalists and stock market trends. And I would not be surprised that we could see the likes of YouTube going the way of Spotify. What do I mean? You remember, Spotify became a publicly traded company. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if YouTube, by perhaps splitting away, could then set itself up to be a publicly traded company. Now, that sounds like a conspiracy theory. Like, why is he just saying this? Where's the authority to say that? Well, let's go back to the story of Spotify. Remember, before Spotify went public, it started to brag about its value.
Its value, yes.
Over time, it was one value, then it was 10 million. No, excuse me, it was 3 billion, then it was 10 billion, then it was 15, then up and up and up and up and up and up and up until it finally went public. And we talked on this show why that was. That was to attract investors, to attract hype, to get it going so that when they finally went public, the value was set high. So that they had a campaign of publicizing their value as you went along.
Which led those of us that wanted to be investors said, oh,
let's get down. And it's also a trigger for people in this profession, the way I'm reading it, that's a trigger for things to come. Why am I saying that? Because YouTube is experiencing some of the same things. Recent articles have valued it at more YouTube valuation at being more like $20 billion. But when you think about the analysts saying that's closer to $300 billion, now, that creates a knowledge gap.
And also, from our discussion, you were saying they had, 45 billion users per month or
that's
something
correct.
Like that? That's a lot of people.
That's why the analysts are saying that figure that they keep publicizing, this $20 billion figure, is not at all even in the ballpark.
When you have a viewership like that.
45 billion visits a month. That's a lot.
That's a lot.
So this knowledge gap that we're experiencing when you consider 20 billion versus 300 billion, that's playing out in the stocks. I think we're going to see companies like YouTube break apart from their juggernauts and become their own because it's a lot more valuable, not to you or I, but to who? Their shareholders.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, wait a minute, I didn't realize that, I didn't anticipate YouTube going public, but it makes total sense when you think about its issues that's been happening. Remember the value gap problem, how much YouTube makes overall when you consider advertising and subscriptions versus how much they pay out to the artist per user. So that's a lot of the problem it's having. So let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to break down more of this music business news right here. Where?
91.6 FM, Freedom Radio Hour, y'all. Mixtape Sessions.
From author and music industry leader Adam Cruz, check out the new book, Free the Music Business, Tips and Tales from an Indie Music Nerd. Available now on paperback, Kindle, audiobook, and soundtrack, courtesy of Mixtape Sessions.
Freedom Radio Hour.
And we're back live on Capital Radio, 91.6 FM, the Heartbeat of Sudan, and on the web at freedomradiohour.com. You're deep in the zone right here on the Freedom Radio Hour, your number one source for music, business, news, and trends from around the globe. I'm sitting here with my fantastic co-host,
Eddie Nicholas. What up, beautiful people? As Adam said, we are deep up into this. So let's go on with it and see how deeper we can go as we get on with our segments.
So I wanted to bring this along so that you understand why between these three segments, you're getting a bit of education as it pertains to copyright, at least in the U.S., and then how that plays into your streaming dollars. Who am I talking to in this instance? I'm talking to you artists, songwriters, producers, people that are releasing material out there and are collecting a royalty in any way. You should pay attention to this because this affects you. Okay, so we were talking about the Music Modernization Act and how part of it is to create this collective that collects your download and streaming money when they can't find who you are or where to find where you're located. There's a collective that will help figure that out. Now we jumped into our second segment, which talked about how this relates to YouTube and how YouTube industry insiders and analysts are really looking at YouTube with a keen eye because they see that the future may be that you'll see YouTube going public on the stock market. And I think that that's a big issue for you and I because like I felt the same way when Spotify announced it's going public, that our own music that we spend all this time creating, because it's on those services, it's basically becoming this publicly traded commodity.
Because it's part of what they do.
And so this is art gone public. And so I have so much issue viscerally when I hear about that because I'm like, I don't want my art to be publicly traded unless I say so.
Say so.
And I feel like oftentimes, all of the time, these things are happening in spite of us or even without our knowing. So I have a big issue with that. And I also feel like we have not figured out a way to get everything together. What do I mean? That, you know, as an artist, you have money that you're trying to collect from your Performance Rights Society, which is ASCAP, BMI, CSAC, or similar. You're also trying to figure out Harry Fox digital performance money.
Mechanical rights and performance
you're trying,
rights.
Yep, you're thinking about this mechanical licensing collective and any money that might be due to you. Maybe they can't find you. I know I'm thinking that. Or is any of that money due to me? You know, and so I'm wondering, when are they going to get to a place where all of this, for at least for our benefit, the artist's benefit, we'll see the invention of something? Well, it looks like we're got to be paying attention to a new app called Jammber. You know, everything's an app now.
Okay, Jammber.
Yeah, Jammber. They're based out of Chicago and Nashville. Jammber was founded in 2013, and since it has raised over $3.4 million in investor funding. And what does it do? It's basically an app that figures out the split between you and another person in an artistic setting. So, and let's create a scenario that's completely pretend for now. Most of you know that Eddie and I create a lot of music together. We co-write, co-produce various things. So it's not unheard of that this would pertain to us. But what we want to talk about now is a pretend situation. Eddie and I are going to have agreed to create a song called Happiness. The song, he and I co-wrote the lyrics, and I produced the music solely. So Eddie didn't produce the music, but he co-wrote the lyrics as well as performed the vocal. I perform vocals as well. Okay, so we sit down, we decide, okay, we're gonna split things 50-50, which is for many of you a common way that you do, a standard way.
Practice.
So what does that mean? Well, we're splitting 50-50. Any publishing earnings related to lyrics, the writers, Eddie and Adam, right? We're also willing to split any of the sound recording, so any download streams that from that mechanical licensing, all of that, we're willing to split that 50-50. But any publishing that hits the composer, the person who made the music, only comes to me, not to Eddie, because Eddie didn't make the music. All right? So we agree, okay, we're fine with that. We agree on the terms, we're 50-50. Great. Now we move forward. What Jammber does is it does three things. It tracks the people's songs and their ownership percentage. So it says, okay, we're tracking Eddie and Adam, and we're tracking 50% to you, 50% to me, of the song Happy, right? Great, no problem. The second thing that it does is that it provides an interface for you to upload the audio files and chat with your collaborator. So in this case, I could upload upload the song Happy once we're done with it, and then I could chat with Eddie, say, Eddie, come into the Jammber app, and you see the percentages I put up. Okay, boom, 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 great, let's move forward, and we can talk and communicate with each other in that way, which is great. And it does all of this stuff automatically. So once you give this information to the app, it'll track this all for you going forward. You would never have to deal with, okay, well, Eddie got our $1, but I'm waiting for him to give me 50 cents. So it'll do that all for you automatically. The last thing it does is when it collects that money has to be dealt with in a housing kind of way, in a warehouse. So it'll deal with the money service part. It's developed its own way to do that. Think like Western Union. It needed a way to house it, or a bank. And so Jammber will use its services to be its own sort of
like their own little PayPal.
Yes. Okay, so that's how one
where deposits the money directly into a Jammber account that you have established.
Exactly.
And the money goes right there, and you're able to go in and take from there.
And so it's hard to prioritize what is the most appealing part, because this last one is pretty appealing too. It will register your songs for you automatically with your performance rights organization, depending on who you're signed up with, Sound Exchange, Harry Fox, or Music Reports.
And of course, this is all stuff that you have entered in manually.
You have to do
Don't think you could just go ahead and put the song and everything pops up. You still have to do your due diligence and load everything manually up in there to make sure that the app and the procedure, follows through and works, and the monies that are going to be collected are deposited to where you want it to go. So it's still in the fly stage.
Still in that incubator stage, as they call it. But right now, so people may be asking the following: how much does it cost you if you want to get down with them? Right now, it's, according to reports, 50 cents a song. And they'll go ahead and they'll provide you all of this. They'll register all those. And I think that's great. Now, I want to be honest and say that there are services out there already that do portions of what I've described. So CD Baby will register your song with a performance rights organization already. We know that. But I'm saying there's nothing that does it all one-stop shopping. So it seems like Jammber is trying to entice people like Eddie and I to get down with them, because it will handle all of this for us.
But when you get things cheap, things have a tendency to be cheap. So when you think about 50 cents per download, you think, that's kind of cheap.
Well, for song registration. Why? Because you would feel better if it was like a per month thing?
No, not at all. But sometimes that 50 cents is such a ear catcher. But what do you get for 50 cents?
Well, I bet you if you're getting, instead of it being free, they had to put a cost in there, because you have administrative costs. Somebody's running this behind the scenes. You got to pay for staff, its offices, etc. So 50 cents seems like a good price for the end user, because like Eddie said earlier, we always are the ones that have to pay for these creations. So I'm thinking 50 cents a song is not too bad. Now, will it change in the future? Perhaps. We are in the midst of a subscription model bonanza. We have right now reports
Thanks to you millennial folks.
Maybe. I feel like we all want to stay home, or we want to be in whatever location. We don't want to be bothered going anywhere public anymore. That's why these streaming services are so successful.
That is so sad.
It is, but it's a sign of the times. I feel like there might be an opportunity here for entertainment to come that we haven't even considered, because we're so impersonal now. We don't want to even go to theaters. Theaters got to make you have dine-in now, because they can't just get you to go there anymore. They have to get
a sense of sensory perception in these things.
Yes.
That's what it all is.
Yes. But anyway, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make it your business to check out EddieNicholas.com. Brand new single entitled Revolution out now. We also have my book that came out, it's just about a year ago. I'm about to be on my first year anniversary. Free the Music Business, Tips and Tales from an Indie Music Nerd. You can pick that up now on Amazon, or if you'd rather listen, check me out on Audible. Also, I'm available on Lulu or directly at mixtapesessions.com. We have a free app. Search out Freedom Radio Hour. You get our podcasts, our mixes, our episodes, our video content, all in one place. One stop, free.
Yes.
$3.99 for you and me. So, so I wanted just to tell you about that and to shout out our broadcasting partners. Thank you so much, and have a great weekend and a great week ahead.
That's right.
Yeah.
Thank y'all for stopping through. 91.6 FM. Definitely the heartbeat of Sudan. Freedom Radio Hour, y'all. And Mixtape Sessions. Peace, love, soul, and Harry's. We're out.